Ryan Divish joins us now. Ryan Divish, of course, brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941, located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District. Chalet Bowl has been family-owned and operated for over 40 years, delivering top-notch customer service and a unique 12-lane experience. Check them out at chaletbowl.com to book your next reservation.
So I thought this was going to be the quiet spot.
Go ahead, Divish.
I thought this was going to be the quiet spot and the why. And then all of a sudden, like, the Silver Slippers yoga class got out. And apparently, they don't have their hearing aids on. So it's like everybody's yelling. And then this is an interesting YMCA. It's really new. It's really nice. But it's also like family style. So there's kids everywhere. I don't know why they're not in school. Maybe they're homeschooled. And so it's just a different mix. It's either super old people.
And you love kids, and you love kids more than anybody.
Yeah, so much so that, like, you know, if we could have crates for them or kennels, you know, much similar to like a puppy, then I'd be good with that. I'm such a bad person.
Hey, speaking of you got a new. Did you get a new puppy, or is that a new puppy for your family, for your parents?
It's for my parents. My parents lost their black lab in March suddenly. The dog was only 5 years old. She had cancer, but they were trying this treatment. Something happened and passed away suddenly. And so, you know, that's a hard thing. And they took some time, and then they kind of decided that they thought they were ready. And then my sister and I decided that they were ready because my parents don't really like each other very much anymore. And so it's like they're cohabitating. So we need a dog to kind of like serve as the buffer to make them happy. And so, you know, it's no pressure on the dog thing. But honestly, like, just, you know, my dad's retired, and if without the dog, he's getting up every day and watching Gunsmoke reruns, and Leave It to Beaver reruns. And then, like, I showed him how to use his DVR. And I look on his DVR, and it's like Looney Tunes and Flintstones and Gunsmoke. And then in the afternoons, he watches Friends. I mean, like, that's, you know. So
that's quite the jump.
Yeah, I know. Well, you know why he watches Friends, and it's not because Joey and Chandler are funny. So he's got, like, so it's a funny thing. Like, ADD people like me, and he's got it. I mean, you like reruns because you don't have to pay attention that much. You already know what's happening. So it's like you can kind of not, it's there, but you don't have to buy in, but you like watching. So, like, for me, every offseason, I'll watch The Wire, the entire 6 seasons of The Wire, and I'll watch all 7 seasons of The West Wing. And then, you know, this year I'm going to knock out The Sopranos again, I think. You know?
Good.
So it's like that. There's a comfort level for ADD people, like, especially like if I'm working, or, you know, just perusing the internet, having that on is good. You know, like, the idea of like starting a new program and buying into it and like focusing on it is super daunting for me. So, like, I'm much more, you know, obviously I watched, you know, me and my girlfriend binged Breaking Bad last year because she'd never seen it. And I only watched the first like 2 seasons. So, you know, that kind of thing once you get into it. But, like, for me, that's really hard to, like, the idea of like starting a series, or even like ones that I've watched. Like, I haven't watched the final season of Peaky Blinders because I hadn't watched it in so while. So I'm probably just going to watch all of it over again and then watch the final season.
Yeah.
You know, same with like Yellowstone.
Yeah, I gave up on that show years ago.
Same with like Yellowstone. I mean, like, it's so absurd, but it's supposedly coming back for a final season. So I'll probably have to go watch at least last season because I haven't seen it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know when Yellowstone's coming back. Was that long-winded like filibuster there just so you don't have to talk about the Mariners?
I mean, yeah. No, but yeah, we did get a puppy anyway. So
okay, so long-winded point, you got a puppy, and then that turned into 5. Tell that kid to be quiet. You know, we don't need that screaming kid there at the Y. I mean, what do we have? 17 games now remaining, 18 games in the season. I mean, time's running out. They'd have to go, what, 13-4?
I mean, yeah, maybe
at least
12-5 if a couple teams fall on their face. but
You know,
they don't even own the tiebreaker with the
tiebreakers.
Tigers or the Twins.
Yeah.
So
Or the Red Sox. They don't have a little tiebreaker with any of them.
no. So I don't know. And every time it looks like they have a chance, and it's not like these other teams are pulling away. It's like, here, we don't want it. You take it. We don't want it. Even the Astros.
Yeah.
If they had just simply won some of the days where the Astros lost, it'd be down to a game too. Like they cannot get the traction to win, to get close. And I guess like technically, if they can keep it at 4 when they go into Houston, if they win all 3, then it makes it interesting. But it's getting more difficult each time that they step on the field and don't win. And like last night was just, I kind of wrote it, but I think the entirety of the season where the lack of offense, I think it's catching up to the pitching. I think that you make a mistake, you're done. And I think Kirby got in that situation. He's trying to go for the punch out, knows he can't give up much more offense, makes a bad pitch, and Machado turned it into a laser. So I just think it's, I just don't see it happening. But then again, every time I count this team out and say, oh, they're done, they win 2 of 3, and then somebody else loses 2 of 3. So who knows? I mean, it's going to come down those last 3 or 4 days, and they're probably going to lose by a game or 2. They'll finish a game or 2 out of the postseason. But does that make you feel any better? Is that Is that the moral 2021, when nobody expected them to be good, and they finished a game and a half or 2 games out? There was some solace in that. Like, okay, this team wasn't expected to be good, and here they go, and they found a way. In 23, they finished a game out, and it was a disappointment. This year, they're going to have lost a 10-game lead. They're going to have woefully underperformed offensively, and they're going to finish maybe a game or 2 out. Now, that's at some point, the Mariners could just say the math doesn't work, and we're going to wave the white flag and pull some of our starters. But, I think you got to run it till you can't. And that'll be the thing. We should probably know after that Houston series whether they have a chance or not.
Okay, so the news that came out yesterday, bad news there for Luis Castillo. So he's on the IR, 15-day IR. They are. It sounds like they're confident a couple of weeks, and then he's back for what? That last game against Houston, first game against the A's. Is that the best case scenario?
Yeah, I think so. That's their hope, anyways. I think when Wu had his hamstring, he missed 15 days or 16 days. So it's possible. I'm sure they're going to slot it that way so they could. But yeah, it's not good. It's not ideal. Emerson Hancock has been a solid replacement, but he's not Luis Castillo, who I thought was much better recently. And I thought he was pitching really well in St. Louis, and then, he gets hurt. So, to me, the backbreaker was Saturday in St. Louis. Oh my God. You
just can't lose that game. You cannot lose something like that when a guy pitches that way. Just can't do it.
When he gave up that homer, did you see the look on Logan Gilbert's face? It was just like, it was just like in Breaking Bad when he says, "Say my name," just like pure, just bitterness and anger. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I'm watching it. I'm in the Davenport Safari Room, or whatever that bar, the Safari Bar. Gonna go to a concert.
Yeah, why are you there?
So I was going to a concert, the Randy Rogers Band.
That's a great bar, by the way, all time.
Yeah, we had a couple flatbread pizzas. Me and my buddy Brian, my girlfriend, we're gonna go there and go to the concert. So we're watching the end of the Mariners game, and we watched him give up that bomb, and I was just like, no, man, that's so brutal. And just knew they were gonna hit after that. This thing is it's part of it is the middle relief. I don't think that they would have come back last night from what George did, but it's a lot different than when both gives up the single. That's a problem. The middle relievers have allowed a lot of deficits to go from 1 run to 4 runs, 1 run to 3 runs. And this offense is incapable of doing that. And I did think it was funny. I told Jude, I was like, hey man, you wrote that story with those quotes from JP about, the offense. And of course, the next day they go out and punch out 14 times and get held scoreless.
Right.
And then the next day they look good again. So, and then like last night, I think they struck at 10 times. They had a bunch of hits, but, Julio stranded 7 runners by himself, and it's not a former team of Randy's, so you don't know what you're going to get from him. When he plays one of his former teams, he's great. But yeah, that Saturday was the backbreaker. I was kind of, okay, this is probably not going to happen. And then they wake up on Monday or Tuesday morning, and they're only 3 back of the Twins somehow. I don't know.
They're going to stay. You just touched on. They're going to stay relevant to the final few games. They'll miss it by a game or two. We've talked about this before, and then you'll just, whenever they do a press conference, if they ever do one, they'll just talk about the excitement that they have heading into next season with this next a wave of talent coming. But they'll fail to mention that next wave of young talent is not coming next year. But they're going to be excited about it. Ownership. Why well, she's excited. That person was excited.
Well, they started the pickleball. I think that was Egan, actually. They started the pickleball on the basketball.
What's the strategy or the thinking behind yet to this point? Correct me if I'm wrong. They have not confirmed that Jerry Dipoto is coming back. They have yet to confirm your report along with Adam Jude. Correct?
Yeah. I guess they just think that I've kind of been told like they don't want the focus to be on that. They'd rather focus on these final 18 games or 17 games, just this up until the end of the season. I don't think I think in some ways the negative aspects or the negative reaction to it all, it really does no good for them to come out. Like from a PR standpoint, it does no good for them to come out and do much about it. But confirming it might be a big deal. Like, I guess they could change their minds. Like, Jerry, that extension we promised you, that's not going to happen. But to me, like, that would be even more dumb if you decide at the end of the season, no, we're not going to go forward with Jerry unless he did something egregious, like double birded the fans or whatever, like, or they, or I don't know, but like, just you have like a finite amount of time to get ready for the off season, and if you were to fire Jerry after the end of the season for some reason, say they changed their mind, then you have to go through the process of finding a GM, then or a president of baseball operations, and you got to have that person go in and evaluate your staff, your players, everything, and then you're going to try and get going into the off season, and you can't talk to most of these people that are in the postseason anyways, because they're in the postseason. So it's like, either if they're going to do it, if they were going to make a change, they would have done it early. I mean, that's what they did with Basie. That's what they did with Sorensic. Now, I know it's a new ownership group in charge, but the folks that are now in charge now were in the minority ownership group when those other executive changes came. You do that midway through, so you'll have some time for the person you have to evaluate what you have and go from there. I mean, you can make it part of the process, but if you're truly doing it right, you want to vet these people and make that decision. So that's why, and I don't know why, honestly, like, if you really believe in it, just come out. You don't have to hold a presser. I mean, I think you would like one, but just release a statement that, regardless of what happens this year, we feel like Jerry Dipoto's put this organization in a better place. He's helped rebuild the farm system. He's built one of the most exciting young rotations in all of baseball. We have all this stuff, and that's why we believe that he's the right person to take us into the future. So I got to, because like that's the thing.
But we've talked about this Go
ahead, Puck.
Well, we've talked about this. All right, I mean, I jumped on you there. My bad. We've talked about this before, though. It's because I don't think that I think they're in a way embarrassed by it, or they're just not fully confident that he's the guy. And so if you don't want to announce it, then and you're not fully confident in it, then why'd you do it? I mean, that would be my question to them if they ever do something and talk, but why? Like, what? It doesn't feel, or you're not giving off the perception that you're confident in bringing him back. So why'd you do it?
Yeah. I mean, like, that's the thing. If you really believe it, you can just say, well, we know more than the fans do. We don't care what the fans think. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to say it that way, but like if you believe that he's the guy, then that's fine. You know, I mean, like, doesn't they don't have to make the popular choice, and if they feel like it's best.
Right.
I mean, like these guys are businessmen. If they look at it from the cold hard aspect of what makes us successful, is a change going to make us successful, at least at this moment? If the answer is no, then don't make the change. You don't have to give them a 5-year extension. We don't even know how long of an extension. It could be like the Jack Z one where they gave him a 1-year deal. It's like, okay, you got one more year of this. We'll be an even 10, and after a decade, we're going to move on if you can't produce. And maybe that's the case. But, you know, it's like, it's, you know, if they hold that presser and they say, oh, you know, we finished a game or two, so we're close, you know, we feel like this has got the good core of a team, or this is a team that's capable of moving forward. And we're excited about that. I mean, I don't know that that's true. You know, you look at the team, say they run it back and they lose what? Justin Turner and I think maybe one other guy, and the rest of the guys could come back. They run it back with this team. Do you think that they're going to contend for the division title? I mean,
no, I mean that's the thing is like but they're gonna you tell like the off season where they're gonna go, right? And that's kind of the last thing. Like, what's the hope? M's hope, and we'll get to Dan Wilson's contract. I'm just curious if there's any information on that. Is where is the hope for them moving forward? Because it doesn't seem to be a lot of roster flexibility that they have, at least from a financial situation, because they don't have a lot of financial flexibility. I mean, unless they get rid of Luis Castillo, but, you know, they owe a lot of people a lot of money. We've talked about this in great detail, right? You've got Gilbert coming up. You've got George Kirby coming up. Cal, is Cal next year?
Cal's arbitration eligible next year.
Yeah, so Cal's up next year. I mean, there's Randy Arozarena is going to make more money. Julio's contract goes up. I mean, there is a lot of money that this ownership group, who again is yet to really just go all the way into the deep end, that they're going to have that they're going to have at their fingertips. I haven't even mentioned the Mitches. I mean, you've said it before. They're going to eat one of them, but I mean, they owe money to those guys. So, you know, the likelihood they'll probably, as you've talked about before on the the over 1,000 podcasts that you've been on about trading others. But you know they're going to trade one.
The sea layer, the marine level.
Sea level. You went on Services Burner podcast. That's the latest one that has probably just come out. But you know they're going to make one of those moves, I would assume.
I would think they'd have to. What you don't want to see them do, man, is to package a younger prospect with a bad contract to rid themselves of the money. Similar to what like Jared is Jared, but essentially they gave up on Jared so they could, get somebody to take the contracts of Evan White themselves, and that's not a good way to do business or in terms of baseball. Giving up young, cheap talent along with veteran talent that you're owed a lot of money to just as a way to reduce salary. You know what? You made the mistake of signing him or whatever. You made the mistake of investing that capital. Eat it, invest more money into it, and then keep your young players. I mean, like that's a bad way to do business. You say what you want about the Rays, trading Randy, trading Blake Snell at the time, Chris Archer. They recognized that they couldn't afford them. They recognized that this is when you're going to get something for them. And then they moved on. I mean, that's how they went. But they weren't giving up young, talented pieces as, to go to help dump the money that there was going to be owed. That's just a bad way to do business. But that may be the only way. If you're going to, let's say they decide if they can't trade Castillo and they trade Bryce or Brian, but the contingency package is you have to take Garver's contract or you have to take Arozarena too. I mean, at least with Arozarena, there's productive there. Like if you went, say you wanted to go to the Red Sox and you wanted an outfielder, and maybe somebody else. You wanted 2 players. You could trade Bryce and then Arozarena to get more, 2 hitters. But you could do it that way. Okay. Adam Jude always says, "Oh, they're going to trade Bryce for Tristan Casas." Okay, but if they want to, maybe that's what you do. Maybe it's just the 1-for-1. But if they're so concerned about money that they have to trade they decide they're going to trade Randy, because obviously nobody's going to take Mitch's money, then that's just a weird way of doing things. You better get two good players, or at least one good player and one guy that's almost right there to be good to do that. I mean, we mentioned like Jordan Westberg and from the Orioles, or Colton Cowser and something. If you have to do it that way, if you have to double up, because that way they're getting a player too to offset that.
We never like to do two questions in one, right? That's the old thing, but I guess it's kind of a two-parter. One, to Arozarena, do you think they're convinced that they actually will go to arbitration and bring Arozarena back? And then two, he gives off a vibe that he doesn't want to be here. Do you get a sense of that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's look, he's uprooted from Tampa, where all his family is and everything else. He's been in Tampa. He lives in Tampa. The one thing about the Rays, where they train, you can stay at your home quite a bit. So I don't think his family's not here. My presumption is he's probably living in the Silver Cloud. While we love the Silver Cloud and Jimmy's on first, it's not like living at home. You're away from your family and everything. So I don't know that he loves it. He certainly would think going into the visitors clubhouse and sitting with Cash for like an hour, and then FaceTiming his teammates every single day in Tampa is grandpa the greatest sign. But you can't non-tender him, and then you gave away two really good prospects, Aiden Smith and Brody Hopkins. Plus, there's still a player to be named later in that deal. You can't just non-tender him because you don't want to pay the money or he's unhappy. At least tender him. Go, settle on an arbitration number. And then if you realize, okay, this is just going to work. He's unhappy. We're not going to get the best version of Randy Arozarena. Then you trade. But you can't. I mean, the optics of that alone, give up 3 prospects and then don't tender him a contract because he's too expensive. Well, you knew that. And essentially, what he's going to probably make next year will cancel out the option that, you budgeted for the club option you budgeted for Jorge Polanco. So, yeah, it's a weird spot to be in with them.
If they did end up moving Castillo, right? And listen, part of the number one reason they would do it is to rid themselves of the $72 million that he's owed. What type of, you're not getting much in back of much of a prospect back, are you, for him? Because you're asking that team to take on the money.
Depends. I mean, some teams can take on the money, like the Dodgers. I mean, they're going through starting pitchings at a rapid rate. They could take on the money.
That's true.
Red Sox can take on the money
and then still give you a top flight prospect.
Yeah. I mean, the Red Sox have some prospects. They have some dudes, and that's a very logical spot to send it. And to the Red Sox, and if you look at it, yeah, he's owed $72 million, but it's pretty economical by starting pitching standards. And so,
agree.
They can't. I don't believe his no trade clause is up until January 1st, but I'm not certain. He has a no trade clause, limited no trade clause. Right. Once, maybe it's just after the season they can do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the first one they shop. He's older. He makes the most money, so you shop him first and then go from there. I mean, I don't know that they ever really knew that they were going to be able to sign him to the extension in the first place. And so, yeah, it's a weird spot that they're in. And you don't know what they're going to do financially, how much they're going to invest back into the team. I mean, the payroll will go up based on simple inflation. And so it's but I think Luis Urias might be arbitration eligible. Yeah, you're non-tendering him.
Right.
Some of those guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this offseason will be strange because you don't know which way they're going to go, because we don't know what the financial situation is and what they say. I mean, because it's easy to just come out and say, well, payroll is going to go up. Well, okay. How much? Well, we don't discuss that.
Right.
It's going to go up $1. Yeah. It's going to go up $10 million. That's the thing that makes it difficult.
They won't discuss it, but they are, because I remember Stanton the last time he was on. I remember when he was on with Ian, and on KJR and when he was on at Jimmy's on First. And I remember him saying that he wouldn't confirm the report by Forbes how much I think was the money that they made, revenue. He said, well, that's inaccurate. I remember Ian saying, well, what is it? Well, I'm not going to talk about it. So you can't sit there and say that number is inaccurate. And then when someone asks you a follow-up, well, what is it? We're not going to comment on that. That's you just can't do that. And that's what drives, I think, me and a lot of other people
and that's why
crazy with them.
That's why there'll never be a salary cap in MLB, because you have to open your books up to truly.
Right.
And so no MLB owner is going to do that. You think that the Steinbrenner brothers want people to know how much money the Yankees really make? And that's the problem with like the RSN bubble and all this stuff. The Dodgers, Yankees, Giants, technically Chicago Cubs, their RSNs are okay. They're not hemorrhaging the way other people are because the population base is so.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they, Red Sox and Yankees own theirs, so they understand how to do it. Like the Mariners just invested at the wrong time, and that's what's hurt them. And they don't have the population base here that you do in New York. So I'm just curious to see what they do. And you're right, I don't use the Forbes numbers. I never have. If you look a lot of the major, like I talked to Passon about it, and Buster and a couple other guys just about using those numbers. And they're just like, we don't really know. We've heard they're not completely accurate. Forbes doesn't really show their work. They're a lot like me in fourth grade long division. I just come up with a number because I had a calculator underneath my desk. I didn't, show my work. So I'm not going to use those valuations. Okay. But I think we all would agree that they made money in 2023. I don't see how they made money in the pandemic. They didn't.
I know that you're right.
They didn't get hurt. Like they didn't.
Part of the story.
They said it didn't hurt them as bad. They've traditionally been a profitable franchise, even when they haven't been good, because they know how to sell tickets and market the team. They have good people doing that.
Yeah,
and they know how to maximize getting people there. Right. They're going to finish with, I think, more attendance than they did a year ago. So I don't know.
I know it's amazing. It's amazing.
I mean,
hey, last thing for you before you run. Last thing for you. I got Danny Kelly from The Ringer standing by. Last thing for you. Dan, do we know anything about a Dan Wilson contract? Do we know what he got, what he received at all?
No. I mean, I imagine it's 2 or 3 years. I think he had to get a different contract because he's under a different contract structure. So, even a manager contract has got a different structure than what he did as a special advisor or whatever, the player development. So, I don't think Dan needs the money, so I don't think they had to spend a whole bunch on him. But yeah, I'm sure it's a multiple year deal. I guess 3 years. That's kind of been the standard, 2 or 3 years with how they do manager contracts. So. Okay. We'll see.
All right, there he is from the Y in Sumner, the Ryan Divish Show. It's brought to you by Chalet Bowl, Washington's oldest operating bowling alley, proudly serving the community since 1941, located in Tacoma's historic Proctor District. Chalet Bowl has been family-owned and operated for over 40 years, the Frederick family. Reggie was in the YouTube chat, so shout out to Reggie for watching. Top-notch customer service, unique 12-lane experience. Check out chaletbowl.com to book your next reservation experience, the best in local fun. You can check out, in case you missed it, all of Ryan's appearance on YouTube will be up there later, as well as on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast, and up at pucksports.com. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep.